So, welcome everybody. As I said, a warm welcome this lunchtime, and welcome to today's Power to Play Early Years Working Group webinar that we have been holding recently. So, looking forward to seeing and hearing from any responses or questions that you may have as we go through today. And of course, keep an eye out because we've got more coming as well. So we're really pleased to welcome Emily Jennings today, who will be talking particularly about the psychology of play. Many listeners have asked about our beginnings as part of the Alliance for Children and where the kind of webinars have come from. And in response to this, we will be doing a talk soon, but this is just a taster and a snippet in terms of kind of where we're coming from the Alliance for Children. And I have taken this from the website, which I would encourage you to have a look at from the Alliance for Children. So I will pass over to Paul in a little minute just to say hello. But the Alliance for Children was born from a simple but powerful belief that the health and well-being of our children should be the nation's highest priority. Our journey began over a decade ago with Paul Wright, inspired by his work in public health and personal experiences, and as an adoptive parent, joined forces with key parliamentarians to advocate for change. Originally launching as the Children's First Alliance, and then in 2018, alongside Baroness de Souza and Water Babies, we have evolved through the challenges of the pandemic into the robust, not-for-profit organisation we are today. So that just gives you a real taster of kind of the journey we've come from, and we've been part of evolving organisations, as I've said, for several years now, really. And to say just a little bit more about this and the Alliance for Children, I'd really like to welcome Paul Wright to say a few words, just as a welcome and a hello to today's webinar. Passing over
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you, Amanda, and hello everyone. It's great to see you all. And hi, Emily. It's nice to see yourself. We've chatted a number of times and met, of course. So yeah, the Alliance for Children is kind of it's in a kind of, shall we say, seminal position at the moment, where about 2 years ago we did a lot of work with Baroness Luciana Berger around the kind of manifestos that would be for the Labour Party. And we made what we called gold, silver, bronze recommendations for each of our kind of working groups. And they were very well received. And many of them we've been ticking off almost as we've been working with this government. We are very much multi-party, both houses, the Commons and the Lords. We very much see ourselves as a group of different individuals that want to change, and we are some 300 plus. And we look at key areas like we are at the moment around the dangers of social media, etc. But things like school meals, obviously play and the importance there, and we've done some fabulous work. One of the powerful parts we have is the fact that we chair and help to create the Parliamentary Child Health and Wellbeing Working Group that has 110 MPs from across the political spectrum. We have a number of, should we say, even ministers hiding in there. We also have some past ministers. So it's been a great way to kind of both broach our subjects, but also, in a sense, get some kind of real feelings and signatures to take things to Downing Street, etc. So we're in a great position at the moment. We're in that position where we're now a community interest company with an asset lock. So essentially, charity light. And we're just about in the next sense to kind of go out there, find extra fundings to grow and see if we can even take on bigger tasks as we go. So I hope that helps. And if you got any questions, feel free to WhatsApp me, but also place in the chat. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. That's really helpful. So, sort of going back to today and thinking about play, and thinking why it's so essential to lifelong growth and development. Having conversations with Emily as we have done sort of over the last few months, and really thinking about what she'd like to share with you today. One of the things that we thought would be really helpful is to really think about the Power to Play report. It's not have to say this is a pretend background, although this is my aspirational room. But it doesn't help when you're trying to show things. We have got a Power to Play report. It's free to download. It's got a wealth of information in it and resources. And what we do at the beginning of each webinar is just kind of signpost some things to it. And for this, what I wanted to do was sort of think really about why is play so essential for lifelong growth and development, the importance of play. So according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word play has 49 definitions, I'm sure there's many more, as a noun and 104 as a verb. This inevitably leads to various agreements about how play is defined, but also how local communities prioritise and financially support play opportunities, from the youngest citizens through to adulthood. Variations to how play is constructed and how play is valued is therefore often reflected on and responded to from scholarly disciplines, ideologies, political and cultural contexts. In making sense of play in 2026, we aim to capture the voices that work closely with children as advocates, as well as including the children's own voices themselves and visual representations of what play actually means to them. And this was really something that we felt was important in this report. So we're talking about children, but obviously we want to ensure that voices threaded through as well. And it's in response to all the contributions of the authors within the report that do work closely with children on a daily basis. So we really wanted to ensure that kind of was underpinning what we were saying. So play is therefore a vehicle for communication. It can be spontaneous, it can be prepared, engaging, embodied, active, social and personal. Play, as we know, can be joyful, but it can also be a struggle, educational, challenging, cultural, creative, therapeutic, to name just but a few. Central, though, always in the way children make sense of their world. The connections and divisions observed as they navigate and internally make sense of their environments that they live in. So when we think about this in the report, particularly thinking about play in society in section 1, we really wanted to draw attention to play being the fundamental right of children as identified with Article 31 in the United Nations Conventions of the Rights of the Child. And although children play in different ways, depending on their social, cultural and environmental context, play is a universal part of development and learning which nurtures children's growth and recognises them as complex and capable human beings. So in turning to that a little bit more, we talked about the historical backdrop of play and how, even though maybe it hasn't been discussed so literally, we can see play coming through in paintings, in engravings. For some of us, we may know a little bit about the history of play, thinking about Montessori, thinking about Froebel, but even going far back as the Enlightenment period of Rousseau and thinking about his manifestation, thinking about Emile and that freedom in the nature. So although we talk about philosophy and the history and kind of where childhood and play is positioned, we can also bring it back to today in 2026. And one of the ways of doing that was thinking about how do we think about play in itself. So when we talk about, say, for example, Vygotsky in 1978, he characterized play as an activity that is desired by the child, always involves an imaginary situation, involves the forming of rules developed and determined by the players themselves, not necessarily determined in advance. We think about Gray's work in 2013. Play can be developed within 5 facets. These are play self-chosen and self-orientated. Play can be intrinsically motivated, the process being more valuable than the ends. Play being grounded by mental rules, but the rules leaving room also for creativity. Play is imaginative and wonder. And lastly, but not least, play is conducted in an alert, active, but relatively non-stressed frame of mind. And as some of us know, sort of drawing on the work of Tina Bruce as well, and the kind of the different principles of play is also very relevant to 2026. Drawing that all together, we can think about it, and what we've highlighted in the report is play being a constellation of characteristics. It can therefore be active and passive. It can involve intrinsic motivation. It prioritizes the process, but it's not driven by the outcome. Rules can be there, but can be negotiated or resisted by the individual. And play provides a space to immerse oneself in the experience without distraction. So, in learning more about the psychology of play, we are therefore delighted to welcome Emily Jennings, who is a play champion, childhood advocate, and playful design consultant with degrees not only in psychology and mathematics, but also the experience that she will share with you today. She is a mother of 4 children, which I think carries a lot of weight, being a parent as well, between 10 and 21 years, and has extensive lived experiences of play in the community, and is passionate about the power of play to support holistic child development and wider society well-being. Emily has campaigned for more play in public places, safer screen use for children, while contributing to place space designs in Jersey and the UK. She has also regularly shares her insights on play in the media, radio and TV, as well as in a TEDx talk, Play Your Way, which I would really support in terms of having a watch of that if you do. So welcome, Emily, to today.
Thank you. Thank you. Could I ask those of you who are in the call to grab a couple of pieces of paper if you can? So pens, if you are particularly artistic, maybe more than one colour, but otherwise pen and paper would be great to have on hand, because this is going to be quite interactive. Forgive me for dragging the creativity out of any of you, but I just think that sometimes we learn as we do. So let's see if the tech all works. And we're going to get started. There. Is that working?
Yeah, that's fine. So what you
Great.
can do is put it to full screen. That would be the only thing I would say. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Emily.
Great. So we're going to get started with the psychology of play in all our spaces. And we're not just going to think about it, we're going to unleash it. So my name is Emily Jennings. Thanks for the intro, Amanda. And I'm so grateful to have journeyed with Paul and becoming a fellow of the Alliance for Children. I'm also the founder of the Play Collaborative, which is a networking group that draws together lots of organizations and people that either provide play or want play. So it's a campaign group as well as a design group. And in the background of this photo, this is one of the playgrounds that I've designed in Jersey. And I'll tell you a bit more about some of my design work. But as Amanda shared, I am also a mum of 4 children. And whilst enjoying play myself, I actually take so much joy in watching their play. Sometimes it's joy mixed with frustration, kind of incredulity at some of their creativity. And a couple of stories really jump out. My eldest really put me through my paces, and she was very creative with her play. And one morning she snuck down early, really, really quietly, because she clearly wanted to get stuck in some cooking. And I found her first thing. She can't be more than like 2.5. And she was brought up bilingual, so had a kind of funny little accent. And I was like, what are you doing in the dark? She was in the living room and I kind of peered in. I was like, what are you doing? She goes, cooking. And I was thinking, oh, what are you cooking on the sofa? And I turned the lights on and found that she was rubbing butter and raw eggs into the sofa. And so, yeah, initially there's that frustration of how we're going to clear that up, but also that joy and delight that she's been really creative and has adapted what she's learned elsewhere and brought it into a new environment. So, yeah, there's lots of stories like that we'll share as we go through. So firstly, we're going to think about play, and we've had some definitions from Amanda and some of previous academics and her amazing work. But I like to think about play as just being fun, free expression. And it's fun, which is brilliant because it encourages us to do it again and again and again. And it's not about the end result, it's about the process. So that fun is kind of dopamine releasing, oxytocin releasing, endorphin releasing. So it really is very beneficial for us. And as humans, we're programmed to do it because it benefits our survival. And that really also explains another element of play, that it is expression, it's communication. And so it's expression of our desires and of our creativity. And so the word free in English, it's wonderful because it means two things. It means that it costs nothing, but it's also free. There's no kind of coercive element to it. It is agentic. So yeah, fun, free expression is how I like to define play. So we are going to start with a little workshop. This one you don't need a pen and paper for, you just need your memory. So you might find that closing your eyes is helpful, but I'd like you to think back to a favourite play memory. It can be from last week, it can be from when you were 5, any play memory that you can really embody. So take some time to really think about where you were and how you felt, and some of the kind of sensory inputs around you. And maybe if you were with anybody else, but if you can just picture those things, and we're going to run through a few features. So it's favourite, so that it did feature as a kind of joyful and really enriching experience that was good enough to be remembered. And really engaging with the sensory element, imagining yourself there. And just wondering about whether you were outside, whether it involved some adventure, an element of unsupervised play. So it was something that you were in charge of, and it was agentic. It wasn't instructed by somebody else. And sometimes it's alone, and sometimes it's with others. It's really to just engage with the fact that early play is often a true reflection of our deep self. And really convey some of our real preferences. And whilst we think about play as being the business of childhood, we're all adults in this call, and sometimes it's helpful to reconnect with what we might lose in adulthood by thinking back to our early play memories. And that's the journey that I'd like to take us on today. And this picture really does tell 1,000 words. This is a gentleman who got polio when he was 5 and lost the ability to use his legs. And this was the opening of the playground that I designed. And he hadn't been in a swing since he was 5. And so a couple of us helped us in it. And the joy and the glee that he experienced from swinging, which had been, I mean, I can't quite tell his age, but I imagine it's at least 50 years since he last swung. And this really brings this quote alive. We don't stop playing because we grow old, but we grow old because we stop playing. So George Bernard Shaw really kind of reminds us there that play is a really key feature of being human. And in many ways, particularly as we're seeing the increase of agentic and generative AI, really seeing that self-initiated creative play that emanates from humans is what makes us human. And it's so important today more than ever that we really grasp hold of that and don't lose sight of that. So play, I really see as the foundation of a flourishing childhood. It's really what makes our species unique. We play a lot, and we spend many, many years exploring and growing through play. And it can be used and harnessed, but actually it's what happens in between lessons and in between the chores. And actually, even in times of crisis, even in times of war, children will still find small ways to play. They might be quieter, they might be smaller, but play is a key feature of humanity. And I do see it as the best building block for a thriving society. And when play is restricted, we can really see how kind of society isn't thriving as well. And that's something that we're going to touch on. So on to pieces of paper. We're going to come back to workshop number 2, which is a play memory analysis. So if you could maybe start in the middle of your piece of paper and jot down some features of your play memory. And the reason we're doing this is because play facilitates flow state, which is both restorative, it restores us and it energizes us. So we can really see play as being prevention and intervention. So jot down your play memory and maybe some of the features of it. Were you moving? Were you creating? Was it social? And did it involve nature? And so it can just be a little bit of grass between the paving stones if it was an urban memory. Mine, and if we were in person, this is the time where we could kind of go around and share some of our play memories. One of my favourite play memories is building a dam in a stream in the countryside with my sister. And we'd escaped. We knew it was slightly naughty because we were messing with the flow of the stream, which would impact people further down the village. But it was really exciting. It was very creative. It was sociable, and it involved lots of moving of heavy stones and logs and digging in the sand. So that's my kind of little play memory. And this is really leads us on to where play and environment meet. So Harry Harlow did lots of experiments on infant monkeys, and in one of them he deprived them of peer socialization and found that it subsequently meant they were unable to form meaningful relationships or even parent well. So the impact on society downstream was really, really significant. And Bruce Alexander did experiments with rats and observing their behavior when they were in different environments. So when they were in a park that involved lots of play and with peers, they found that they were more able to resist addictive and destructive behaviours. So our environment and the environment of our children is so important. And when children are not welcome in public places, we are seeing these signs starting to come down, but they sadly have gone up for several decades, and they are everywhere. These are signs that are still up today in Jersey, but I know that there are many, and Play England doing another campaign on trying to get them taken down. But what if we welcome children with signs like this instead? You know, play is welcome. And where play might be inconsiderate, let's try and counteract that with a really positive message of saying play considerately, and then maybe start thinking about what considerate play looks like. So what if we design play to mitigate today's childhood issues? So physical play to reduce obesity and inactivity. We're seeing those rates really rise. And social play to combat isolation. Again, even, you know, teenage loneliness levels and isolation levels are high. And for the first time ever, the isolation our young people are experiencing is actually higher than our old people who were traditionally the more lonely. So we have got some real issues that we need to address. We're also seeing huge dysregulation, whether that shows up in the classroom, in our kind of send numbers, or in doctor surgeries, we are seeing the benefits of green therapy and nature therapy to really help regulate us through our kind of multi-sensory engagement with our environment. And finally, risky play. Resilience is again something that we are not seeing enough of. We're just seeing a real lack of resilience, and whether that's the 20% of young people who aren't in full-time employment and education, or whether it shows up in numbers of the workforce and numbers increasing rise in sick days. Resilience is something that is learnt in childhood, but it's learnt through practice. It's learnt through overcoming challenge. And if risky play isn't facilitated, or there's no opportunities to overcome challenge, well, guess what? We don't learn to overcome challenge. We have to practice it. So, fences. That's another big issue, a bit like no ball game signs. Are they there to keep us out, keep children out if we want to lock the space, or to lock antisocial users of play spaces out, or are they there to lock children in? So this is a kind of deliberately inflammatory way of presenting it, but this is a housing development with a play area that's sandwiched between the buildings and a car park, and the fence that was put up initially might have just been what was kicking around, but it really didn't make for a very welcoming space. But it's never too late to retrofit. And that's really my big message to developers and planners and councils. If you didn't get it right first time, it's okay. We can retrofit. And this same play space was retrofitted with a lower fence, and it went from an empty prison-like space to a much more welcoming, well-used space. You can see children are just there, and they are in there regularly, and the carers prefer it and the children prefer it. And a wonderful display of children rushing in as if they just dumped their bikes. So on to workshop number 3. We're going to look at your play profile. So I hope you enjoy my little hand drawn. I'm really trying to kind of embrace the humanness of my tech, not just using images lifted from programs. So here's a little person. We're going to be thinking about our play profile as our special, unique DNA. And we all have a different play profile, and there are 5 elements to it. So the first one is cognition. So some of us are more into kind of fixing things, solving problems. You see some children that are really into puzzles, and others just not at all. Some that are really into Cluedo or Monopoly or card games or tricks, magic tricks. This is really, have a think about what are the things that you enjoy doing with your brain and thinking. And then the next arm is social. We all have a different appetite for socialization. Some of us might recharge alone, some of us might recharge in a group. And again, we'll see that in the playground. We'll see the children that are just playing with marbles or a bit of stick and mud in the corner, and others that are involved in really complex social games. And we also see it in choice of sport. And whether some children will enjoy a really complex team sport and others will prefer an individual sport. So we'll see that whether it's football or athletics, or even something alternative like some of the street sports that we're seeing increase, like skateboarding or parkour. So that's really something to take seriously. We're not all the same, and we have a different appetite and a different ability to engage in social play. However, sensory, we all have sensory needs. Some of us will be sensory seeking, some will be sensory aversive. Some may prefer the feel of sound, some might really hate it. Personally, I don't mix crumble with my hands. I prefer to use a mixer, but lots of people like to get stuck in. Lots of my children have loved Play-Doh and loved messy play, and some others not. But we all have sensory needs, and whether that's pressure or just touching nature and that element of grounding. Those sensory needs are so important to be aware of. Physical. I guess that's pretty close to sensory, but that's the kind of the bigger movements. With rising obesity and inactivity, we really see the benefit of physical play and how important it is. Children are born to move. Some of them do it more readily than others. And I'm also aware that in our English culture, we very young tell children to sit still, stop fidgeting, sit on your hands, stop moving around, stop jumping around. What are you doing that for? Sit down. And other cultures don't do that as much. And it's being really aware that whilst we are members of our culture, we do have a unique play profile. And then finally, our emotional play profile. So this is the resilience bit and the appetite for risk. So some children will climb on top of the climbing frame and the hut, on top of the swing set, whilst others are kind of quite happy just swinging gently. And it's being really aware that, again, we're all different. There is no right way, but it is important that we have space to overcome risk according to our capacity. So I'm going to run through a few of the spaces that I've created to really get thinking about what we can do as we walk through our daily lives and our spaces around us. So this is a nature play space that I created in a local park. Logs are pretty cheap, particularly after storms. But creating a circle that encourages movements, this really works a trick, and kids of all ages and even adults get stuck in. And it's multisensory. There's a cognition element of trying to figure out how, if they can reach across. So we've got problem solving, we've got sensory, we've got physical, we've got the social element as they're kind of going past their parents for other children. And in the background, you can see a big group swing. Again, this is back to mitigating our issues with loneliness. I'm a big fan of group swings because it gets everyone participating. So here we've got some play in the fenced playground that I created. I've loved seeing the child-led design emerge. So the mound was put in without that path. That path has been created by children just walking up and over like those two little boys, but also using their bikes and scooters. They have created it, and the grown-ups have made space for it. I created the mound, and no one from the parks team has said, children, you're damaging the grass, we're going to fence it off, you're not allowed to go on it, we're going to let the grass grow back. They've let them create it, and it's just wonderful. On dry days it's hard, and on wet days it's a great little muddy puddle, and some of them even try to slide down it. And as we've, Amanda mentioned earlier about play being therapeutic, we can really see that play spaces can deliver therapeutic spaces, and not just for the children. There's a couple of dads who met in this playground. Their daughters knew each other from nursery, and the dads had never met, and it was a really sweet moment as the girls were so excited to get their dads to meet and to chat. So community really does grow for all ages in a playground. Also incorporating nature like boulders into some of the artificial surfacing. Whilst artificial surfacing is helpful for maintenance teams with limited kind of manpower, it's great to incorporate natural material like wood, earth, grass and stones. Here we've got a lovely moment capturing a father and daughter, and not sure if the little one belongs to them, but again, it's creating space for connection in a busy world that actually we need to create that space intentionally, and play areas really do deliver a lot of that. Again, collaborative play. I'm so aware of this crisis of loneliness and isolation, so I really try to choose kit that has that needs teamwork and team power. And this is a wonderful scene of younger children and older children helping them. It's such a great example of teamwork and shared joy and movement. And this is the opening of the playground that I designed. And the two girls wearing sashes were involved in the bespoke design elements. When I brought the design to the Jersey Youth Parliament, some of them asked to add a slide. And so the playground companies I work with, I always try to pick ones that we can bespoke. And so we added the slide, which has been a fantastic addition. It was also brilliant to see the kids at the top. So they're up 4 meters high, arguably not using it as it's supposed to be designed, which I'm always up for innovative and creative play. And it was brilliant to see the teachers so relaxed at the opening of this playground. They didn't tell the girls to get down. They let them play. They let them assess that risk themselves. And I guess trusted the engineering. But it was just brilliant to see that. And then that is that element of expression of play, that it's fun, free, and expression. And then this again is a swing set that's facing each other. So it's swinging to connect. It's a 6-way swing, one of the biggest group swings of individual swings that's on the market. And it's really fun watching the kids trying to touch their feet. And I was there the other day, and there were 4 young teenage boys who'd arranged to meet in the playground, and they did manage to touch feet. And it was really fun watching them do that. That's that sensory input. And if we think about how many of them might be tempted to scroll and reach for alternative digital entertainment, it's very hard to swing and scroll and swipe at the same time. So providing really energetic, engaging play is a great way to get kids to put their devices down. Here's space in urban environments for risky play. So this is not a designed play area. This is just a little car-free area between buildings in Vienna, with a block, which is clearly a bench, and a couple of boys who've been allowed to play out. There weren't any parents around. They had their scooters, and they'd clearly found a couple of planks somewhere and pulled them out, and they had created their own play. It's that brilliant innovation in action. And again here, kids not using play spaces as they were designed, but bringing their own challenge to it. This was really kids just going up and down, just seeing how high they could go. They weren't getting anything. There wasn't a ball stuck anywhere. They were clearly, they'd done their role playing with their toy buggies and done the scootering around and wanted to just get up high. So it's having that space in between that's car free, that's safe for kids to push boundaries. And here, again, another fantastic housing development with no cars. So the buildings all face a centralized green space, and there's an amphitheatre around the corner, but there's also water. And water is so fantastic because it moves. It makes sounds, and it's really interactive, and it's never the same. And the kids had kind of water bombs and water guns, and were just playing freely, whilst I imagine being watched by their caregivers back in their flats. But they were free to play alone. Now we're going to move on to virtual spaces and tell the story of virtual play. This is my only AI slide, and I incorporated it just because I thought it was a bit of fun, but also fascinating how it can just be so easily pulled together. So I'll let you read that quickly, and just the origins of virtual play, and it transforms how we engage, and then the evolution through gaming, that's what we're going to track a bit, to virtual reality and augmented reality, and then how it influences our social connections and education. So we started digital gaming in arcades, so real sense of community there. You went somewhere with a community to play on a screen. It was somewhere you traveled to, and it had opening and closing times. Then these screens became more accessible, smaller, portable, cheaper, and came into our homes as PCs and games consoles, but still are big enough to be a kind of a public screen and a communal screen. And we've seen the evolution into handheld devices, initially with kind of Game & Watch and Nintendo Game Boys, but again with limited discs that you had to buy. And then came the mobile phone, which was really a communication device. It was primarily for speaking to people with the odd little kind of game like Snake, good old classic. Then the gaming console got a bit more sophisticated with the Switch, and the iPad came onto the scene, which is really a multi-tool, an extraordinary feat of engineering to have kind of music, data, communication, emails, gaming, everything rolled into one device, which whilst we might appreciate and enjoy and value for friction-free technology, what does it do to children? So that iPad got smaller into a smartphone, and now we all know we have mini computers in our pockets with very sophisticated gaming and data transmission and internet accessibility, which underpins a huge gaming industry. It's $350 billion global revenue. And we've also seen how this has hit the classroom with the advance of EdTech, which is also an incredibly profitable industry. This is where we see it play out on social media. So children go online to socialize, but as this 10-year-old shares, they're going online. This is the best thing about going online. It's playing with your friends. But their biggest concern is that they get addictive and that they stop socializing. So whilst the intention of social media is to increase socialization, what we've seen now with the algorithms and the adverts that have been so well laced in and bespoke to the user is that actually the users are becoming stuck. They've gone in to socialize and to connect, but they're actually getting stuck and finding that they're socializing less. And how this impacts childhood and child development is incredibly concerning. So we are experiencing this digital Wild West with real childhood confusion and harm mixed up with adult freedoms. So whilst we have an internet that's accessible to all, we have the wonderful features like free speech and self-generated content, but children can then stumble across stuff that isn't just not beneficial for them, it's actually really harmful. And it's very hard for children to moderate and choose that content themselves. And this is really where, as adults, we need to be creating and curating age-appropriate virtual playgrounds. Just like we do in the real world, we create safe playgrounds for them and we guide them there. They need spaces where they're free to play safely, and then adult need spaces where they're free to express themselves. And I'm really passionate about holding these two things in tension, the freedom of expression for adults and the freedom to play safely for children. And they can exist alongside, but it does require us to really, really think carefully about how we curate this. And as we're seeing countries age-gate social media, and we're seeing educational facilities and groups really issue age guidance on smart devices and on technology devices, we're really seeing how the immediate gratification of a swipe and a scroll can undermine natural play processes, with children not able to build a whole den themselves or complete a puzzle because they are so used to swiping and scrolling and that immediate feedback that it undermines the child development, but also all the benefits from play and social play. We're seeing this impact lifelong learning environments. So whilst adults might want to automate to increase efficiency, actually children really benefit from slow, complex learning. And childhood is when all the brain synapses are forming, and a bit like learning to drive an automatic. If you only learn to drive an automatic car, it's much harder to then drive a manual car, and in fact you may not even know how to if you've only learned to drive an automatic car. And if children only learn how to ask Google where France is, or give me a country that starts with F, they haven't really learnt about the geography and of the world, and how to use a map, how to retrieve information, how to analyze information. So when they're just accessing a search engine, or even using generative AI, it's actually a lost learning opportunity. And we adults, fine, let's value efficiency and automation. But children, we need to train our society and train our mini humans on the most complex version. And that is just so important, to not shortcut. The slow dopamine, the slow processes really aid the complex skills that we want our young adults to have. And again, to coin a term that does get thrown around, expression deepens impression. This is an example of a hand drawn homework poster on Light, and this is my daughter's. She's done many of these kind of posters using her Chromebook, where you just copy and paste images from the internet and plonk them in a poster. They often lead to tech meltdowns when the images get lost, or they end up behind each other, or the wrong size. And you can see from this that there's been no spell check. There's been no digital distraction. It was a really calm, creative and imaginative task. And the creativity of her drawings, and particularly the car with the different colours, the window, the doors, the headlights, it's just beautiful to see. And our children are missing out when they're not given these opportunities. Although it's not to say that tech doesn't have its place, it's just a balance. And it's trying to make sure that we find that balance. And when we look at collaboration, we can see that real collaboration, IRL teamwork between children, where they're having to problem solve. If there's a dominant or a shy member of the group, how do you get everyone to participate? Versus a synthetic and AI chatbot interface, where the chatbot is programmed to please and to respond to the user. The child isn't learning how to overcome and how to get different people to collaborate. Again, it's just a lost learning opportunity. We need to be training our children on the complex. So we play to thrive. And how can we reintroduce friction to learn more? And this is just a little summary of some of the things we did earlier about sensory inputs, and it needs to be fun, not a compulsion, and free, not extractive, and creative, not consumption based, to build community rather than individualized fragmentation. I am really aware of the time, so we're going to finish. We are at the end. This is our 4th workshop, and this is really about where you play on the way. So if maybe grab a piece of paper, 3 columns, and think about where in your home and in your community, and then where in your school or workplace, and then in your 3rd space, which might be real life as well as virtual, where you already play and where you might add a bit more play. So sometimes we get caught up in the busyness of things and we don't play enough, and we end up burnt out, or we forget to play on the way to something. So that's active travel, or it could be fitting in some games with friends, not just kind of sitting and eating and drinking, but trying to incorporate some fun dancing around the kitchen. And then in our 3rd spaces as well. So that's some of the community spaces we go to, or cafes. And if you are in charge of any of those spaces, or you create a space, don't hesitate to add that human creative touch. It's really when we are courageously creative that we can be the change, and our play on the way and our play flow planning from dawn till dusk can really change the world around us. And it is so, so important that we remember what it is that makes us human and that we share it. In fact, our DNA, our personal play profile, and the footprints that we walk through life and where the path that we walk is totally unique. Nobody else has the combination of your play profile and your footprints and your path. So please share that gift of play with all those around you. Thank you very much.